Hello, everyone. I'm Kandice Lewis-Wilson from the Center for Public Impact. CPI works to reimagine government so that it truly works for everyone, putting people and communities at the heart of decision making.
And hi, I'm Pamela Zaballa. I'm the CEO of No More, and No More works preventing gender-based violence around the world.
Love it. So we thought we'd take this time to talk together, not in a formal interview style, but as a conversation between partners and now friends about why this broadcast means so much to us, our organizations, and to each other personally.
Thank you for, partnering and doing all the great work that you do. And I think we should start there. Why is it important to celebrate a day like this, the elimination of violence against women? Why do we think it's relevant? I'll pass that to you first.
Yeah. So, just thinking about the many conversations that I've had with folks over the last few days throughout ANGA, throughout Climate Week, I think what I've heard is that, the work is not done. There's so many important initiatives happening. There's so many things happening across the world. But what we know is that there's still evidence of violence happening through technology, through our legal system, through our child support system. And what I've also seen is that what we're learning about here lately is the importance of the survivor voice. So to keep escalating the voice of the survivor, to keep making sure that their voices are at the center of what we do. And so as long as there are survivors, there's that need to escalate that voice and to need to make sure that we are centering all of our work through that lens.
I love that you talk about survivors being at the center. I think that's really important for the importance of marking a day like today. I think one of the key issues why we are making this broadcast and bringing people together from different parts of the world is the fact that for basics, right? Sometimes people are not aware that a day like this exists, right? It's such a pervasive issue. It affects, a third of the women around the world and men at large numbers. And so it's very important for us to make sure that we take a moment and think about this. I always tell people around me that might not know about the issue, just make sure, that you understand it, that if you have a friend that comes to you that has been affected by violence, what will you do? Right? Or do you even know where your local shelter, do you even know if there is something like that, a service, and there's a lot of people that don't. So it's great to have days like this to acknowledge survivors and to acknowledge that we might have some points that we need to know a little bit more and be able to serve any person that comes to us with a story. And we've all had those.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what I've heard just tremendously is that awareness is key, like having the conversation, talking about it, escalating it. And these topics are unfortunately so taboo that they're the thing that gets swept under the rug, right? It's the thing that people don't want to talk about. But I think starting here in these conversations to say, this is happening. This is where you can get help. This is the organizations that exist to support these initiatives and moves. And also thinking about it in the bigger level of and then how do we inform policy? How do we inform legislation to make sure that those organizations are properly funded, that they're properly supported, that they have the laws and the processes and policies behind it to govern the work that they do to do it successfully.
Kandice, we have a lot of challenges in this space. And I want to ask you, if this isn't, possible or an easy question, which one of them troubles you a lot? An issue that we as practitioners, people seeing us, where do you think that one of the main challenge to move this agenda forward really lies in?
That's a big question. I think the thing that challenges me the most and that I hear is the disconnection in the systems. I think, you see people there's some people that will go to help to their church. There's some people that will go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. There's some people that's going to go to the police. There's some people that's going to go to their school nurse, right? And what I've learned is that none of those systems talk to each other efficiently or effectively. And so what happens is that we miss the opportunity to properly support something or someone because it gets stuck in the system. And what I would love to see is a more collaborative effort of how we actually do this, right? Because the school nurse is not up to date on the child violence laws and policies in their system. They're educated and informed on how to nurse in a school system. And so if that person doesn't know what tools and resources are available for them, and there's no connection to the proper agencies, oftentimes we see that young person fall in the crack. Mm-hmm. When the person that is abused in their home goes to their church leader, if that church leader doesn't know what nonprofit organizations or what legal aid systems they can go to in their community, again, another person falls in the gap. So I don't want to say that these things are not happening, that people are not helping, because there's help all around, but the help is not connected. And so what happens is we get a stopgate in actual support and actual like services for survivors, because these systems don't talk. And so one person might get stuck in that system and they never get the true help that they need, or they get one lens of help, but there's so many other layers of support that is needed that doesn't happen because the system doesn't talk to each other. So
I have to say that my challenge is very similar to yours. It goes exactly on the same line, which is the lack of collaboration. Mm-hmm. We see governments, especially during these days or at other moments, making commitments,
right,
without structures that are just not changing. Government departments that are not talking to each other, money that is being given by one and by another without any kind of cohesive approach. The countries that have been the most successful in transforming their violence against women responses have been the ones that actually have whole government approaches, not only in paper, because sometimes, it does mention different government departments, but actually the ones that really work together. I think countries that have been successful might even have a ministerial meeting every month to just check up on the follow-ups for their violence against women and girls agenda. So I think the disconnection starts at the most senior levels, and then it kind of goes down all the way to, as you said, frontline services. And at the end, what we have is a response to survivors that is poor.
Absolutely.
I know there's a stat that we, quote about in the U.S., somebody getting only $100 if we kind of break up and all the government assistance.
Right.
How much does a survivor really cost? So this lack of collaboration at the highest levels is costly to society, and most importantly, to survivors of domestic and sexual violence.
Absolutely. Someone, I think it's Rosie Odago, says this, and she said, the policy is only as good as the pen and paper that it's written on, right? Without proper implementation. And I think we see that because even here in the United States, we have a national action plan that's never been implemented, right? And so you see that in multiple different countries, not just here in the US, that the work is done, but there's also critique about were the right people at the tables, right? Because oftentimes these other parts of this system, right, nobody wants to be told what to do. So it's one part of the system comes up and says, okay, here's our plan. And then we just distribute it out to everybody and say, here's what we're going to do. So you don't get the buy-in, you don't get the investment. It's not survivor informed. So it's like you said, it's just pen to paper, but it doesn't actually operationalize to anything because people weren't involved in that process. People were not aware of the process. And then it's just a matter of, okay, here's what everybody's going to do. And then it's a grand reveal of this plan. And then 10 years later, nothing happens. So I totally agree with what you said.
Kandice, what keeps you going? And I'm going to give some context for this for anybody who works in services that is hearing us today. It sometimes seems like it's a problem that has no end.
Right.
So what keeps you going in doing this work and being so committed as you are?
Ooh, what keeps me going? Food on most days, but
yeah, that would be my number one too.
Outside of a good meal, right? No, seriously, I think there's so many things that gets me going. I think just innately, I have just a true love for people. I think when people ask me about like what is my passion in life, what drives me in anything that I do, I just truly love working with people. I truly enjoy seeing people's life become better through process, through policy, through practice. And I think it's hearing the stories of survivors, hearing people overcome tragedy and turn it, their pain into purpose. I've worked years working in anywhere from foster care to domestic violence to child welfare to adults living with intellectual disabilities. And in all of those things, what I've enjoyed most is to see how just small changes, how just listening to people, how just having the right voices at the table, how considering, the implications of our choices impact people and actually putting that, that vision to practice and process changes people's lives tremendously. Implementing something as simple as coordinated services in DC created we saw a triple effect in amount of services people were able to get access to. So co-locating a domestic violence partner at DC's largest homeless shelter for families in DC, we saw the increase of services for DV and sexual violence in DC increase by 66%. So it's these small things that seem like, these big feats, but it was a small change that we made that then allows access to services and support and life-changing things. And so I think that's what drives me, the ability to see people's lives change forever, the ability to see people get back their power and get back control of their life, which is important for me. So
I think what does it for me is I had the pleasure of managing one of the first shelters ever in the world. It's the UK in a place called Chiswick, 7 bedrooms now, but in its day had 100 families. People were fleeing from all over the place. And I'm telling you this because when it makes me reflect on the fact that I was born into a world where those existed, right? It didn't exist for the woman that went to Chiswick at that time. And I can see change.
Yeah.
Change has happened.
Yeah.
So it's almost like not just let yourself be consumed by what we're missing, but actually take some learnings from the people that came before us to do this work and did it successfully. And we live in another world. And my daughter was born into a better place where she would get even more services or more quality services. So trying to leave it like that for our kind of next generation, I think it's, that keeps me going. Making sure that the ball continues to roll, even moments when we lose faith, like currently we don't seem to be in the best times, but actually this needs to keep on happening. So yeah, that kind of faith on the people before us, moves me on.
Absolutely. And so I'm interested to know, why No More chose to partner with CPI for EVAW.
I think the mission of CPI in terms of moving systems, working through systems to create real change was really inspiring for us. We know that that's probably the only way to work to make real lasting change. More than just providing a service to a survivor is really what you were addressing before. How can we really get this to many more people and cause real influence? So I think different organizations have different expertise, and certainly Center for Public Impact has that expertise of, creating systems change, which, just seem ideal to add our kind of gender-based violence prevention focus and see what we could do from there.
Absolutely. And so, we have a long day of recording and talking to so many amazing leaders in this space. And so what do you hope people take away from today's broadcast? Hope
that, the fight, for making sure that people who endure domestic and sexual violence is still there, that we're all kind of working together. They're trying to get better at, coordinating and just making sure that, change is possible. So I think that's one of the things that I would love people to continue. I think we're missing that at the moment, especially within the sector, and with things happening around the world. I feel like we're losing a little bit of hope and drive. And for many reasons, many of which are really, really valid, there's a little bit of a sense of desperation.
Yeah.
And I would love people to, colleagues from the sector who are seeing us today, to know that there are others, to reach out, to look for partnerships. I think we're all going to come out of this stronger, more resilient, and with many more tools in our hands than, we probably, would have been under other circumstances. What about you?
Yeah. So as you were talking, I was thinking about a value section that we just did at one of our team offsites, and we talked about courage and curiosity. And I, coming from being an African American woman, being a Black American woman, my life has been deeply rooted in hope for change, hope for difference in our life. And I I would say that in my experience, my community is not without hope. But what I would like to see is the curiosity to then take that hope to listen and get educated and be more informed, to then change that to something different, and the courage to work in a system right now that feels really difficult, that feels really foreign, to be bold, to think outside of the box, to think outside of the lines, to say that I can be curious, I can be more informed, I can be better educated, and I can be courageous, I can be bold, I can move in a system that may not be working in my benefit right now, or may not seem or look like what I want it to look like, but I still have that curiosity and courage to move forward, to do bold things, to think outside of the box, to go against what seems like the normal, to do good work and make an impactful change. So if I could add on, because I definitely believe hope is necessary, but I would add that I would love to see people be curious about what we're talking about, to become better educated and become better informed, but also be courageous in their efforts to make that difference as well. If you could ask viewers to do just one thing after watching this, what would it be?
First, I would say to be informed of issues regarding gender-based violence. That's always really important when you want to know or have a reason to help and get engaged. But the second bit is the most important thing that we're doing today is we're putting a fund together for organizations who have had a real hard time throughout the US, especially because some of their funding has been lost for support. So for some really incredible frontline provision that we know is missing. So I would tell everybody who can help, it doesn't matter how much or how little you can, to please look at our website, nomore.org, and we will be, giving details of how to support and organizations that will be assisted within that.
Awesome. And I would say that I would just advise people to get educated about the public policy in their communities, in their cities, their states, their countries around gender-based violence, and look into ways that they can help and support. So Pamela, we thank you so much. We thank No More for partnering with us to be a part of this important conversation. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you.